2:51 p.m. It's posted on our website. Yesterday, we began that walkthrough and we paused at the top of page 21. So if we could resume there. Thank you, Mr. Kowski, for coming back.
Good morning. Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. We have to page 21.
Yes, we are.
Great. Right. Okay. So.
It's in top of 21, I should say that.
Great. So the next change is on page 24. So on page 24, this is the section related to the technical advisory group. And language has been added on line 4 that's highlighted. And it reads, the commission may use appropriated funds to hire a consultant. And so this consultant specifically is the one who will be doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the math related to the life cycle emissions analyses. And so this was a request from the Public Utility Commission to specifically allow them to use appropriated funds for the consultant. I think they were concerned it wasn't clear where that money would be coming from.
Any questions on that one?
So where does it come from?
At the end of this bill, in the appropriation section.
Okay, comes from the state.
So the next page, the next change is on page 26. On page 26, on line 11, section 8128 is highlighted. There are no changes to the language here. However, the prior section 8128 on consumer protection has been removed based on the testimony you heard from the Attorney General's office.
And you have represented that office, but you restate their position on why we didn't need to include it.
Sure. So the language as the bill was introduced included a directive to adopt specific rules. The Public Service Department and the AG's office to adopt rules specific to predatory acts under this act that would violate the Consumer Protection Act. But I believe you heard testimony from the Attorney General's office that those type of acts would already be subject to the existing consumer protection statute, and so additional rules, in their opinion, were not needed.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that one? Senator McDonald.
From page 26.
Page 26, middle of line 11, 8128 is highlighted because there's a section that got pulled right at that application. 8128 has changed.
Correct.
All right, page 27.
Page 27, there is a new section 5 that has been added. This is entirely new text to this bill. So section 5 adds language to 32 VSA 3102, which is the section of law that establishes the Department of Tax's confidentiality requirements. So the language on page 27 is existing law establishing that the Department of Tax shall not disclose any information they receive as part of a tax return. And then on page 26, subsection, on page 28. On page 28, language has been added to subsection D. So starting on line 1 of page 28, the commissioner shall disclose a return or return information to the Public Utility Commission and the Department of Public Service for purposes of providing information related to the fuel tax imposed under 33 VSA 2503, necessary to administer the clean heat standard established in 30 VSA Chapter 94.
So that's the outcome of our conversation a week or so ago with all those parties in the room. Thank you.
Okay, so the next set of changes are part of the rulemaking process, and they start on page 28. So section 6, which was previously section 5, lays out the implementation steps that the PUC needs to do in order to adopt the rules for the clean heat standard. So first, subsection A is highlighted, and that is because language has been struck in this paragraph. So previously, this paragraph contained a requirement that the PUC submit an interim report on the clean heat standard on October 1, 2024. And the PUC requested that that report be removed. If you remember during our first walkthrough, when I gave you your timeline, S5 is introduced, included 3 interim reports. This was the middle interim report. And so the rest of this section contains 2 other interim reports that are due before the rules are adopted. They will be in January 2024 and January 2025. So this is removing the report from the off session season. The interim report.
The interim report. So we'll have the PUC back in to talk about some edits and things that we want to have a conversation about. But on this one, I think the shorter was there are 2 things. One, the report comes in October. We're not in session, so not particularly useful to the legislature to have that report at that moment, other than it might offer information that we could use to anticipate what we might do the next legislative session. So it's not without merit. But the other thing is they are going to be in the full court press, I guess, of writing a rule that's coming out only 2 months later. So that rule will be, I think, more substantive than the report would ever be. We'll see the full rule by January 15th of 2025. So they said, could you let us concentrate on delivering the rule and not add another report, which they estimated could take up to 2 weeks to write while they're hard at it and writing the rule itself. So that's, but as council said, it does still leave 2 other reports so that we have regular updates as they're doing their work. So sort of a balancing problem. That seemed like a accurate characterization.
Yes.
Picture of us. Thank you.
So the next change is on line 12. Language has been removed in subsection B. So previously, the language required the PUC to hire a facilitator for public engagement on or before October 1, 2023. This language now reads, the commission may hire a public engagement facilitator. So it's cutting out the deadline and it's making it permissive, which was a request of theirs again.
And I think in terms of the public engagement process, we've talked about what was required under some of the language that is in here is related to the fact that the draft, this retains language from the original House concept, which was that the program will be developed under orders, and orders don't require the public engagement process that rules do. So we have some residual language from the order making pathway that are as part now still a part of this rule making pathway that we've redefined. So I think there's a question as to what's worth retaining, what's worth perhaps revising. And I think that's a bigger issue for us to come back to in terms of public engagement. And I think we also heard concerns around equity and engaging people at the right time and place to make sure that we're living up to the environmental justice mandates that we passed just a year ago. That's right. Thank you.
So the next change is on page 30. It's under subsection E, which is related to draft proposed rules. So the changes here were again proposed by the PUC. So the commission shall publish draft proposed rules publicly and provide notice of them through the commission's online case management system, ePUC, to the stakeholders in this rulemaking who registered their names and email addresses with the commission through ePUC. The prior draft just referenced emailing the commission to provide notice. This is taking into account the PUC's existing system, ePUC. Yes. And then further down on line 10, the commission shall consider changes in response to public comments before filing the proposed rules. Previously, it read, the commission shall incorporate necessary changes in response to public comments. So again, this is a request of the PUC to change it from incorporate necessary to consider changes. Okay, further down on page 30 in subsection G, consultant. Same with the other consultant, the subsection G now reads, the commission may contract with a consultant to assist with the implementation of the clean heat credits. Previously, it read, on or before January 15th, 2024, the commission shall contract with a consultant. So taking out the deadline and making it permissive.
Again, we'll have the PUC talk about this, these process questions.
The next change is on page 31. On line 5, the name of the House Committee has been changed to reflect that the House Committee has a new name. And then on page 31, line 16, the PUC requested this language in subsection J, so this is entirely new language. The commission may rely on the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, the Department of Public Service, and other state agencies and departments to assist with the economic modeling for the required reports and rulemaking process. So for example, in the prior paragraph, subsection I, there is a requirement in the checkback reports to provide economic analysis and modeling on what impacts may come out of the program. And so this is allowing them to work with other state agencies to get some of that data.
Okay. Senator White?
Thank you, Senator Brake. If we wanted to make this information or how the modeling is done public, is this where we would do that?
So you mean like the variables and the, so right above this in section I on lines 9 through 14, there's a description of what analysis the PUC has to do for their reports that will then be issued in the reports.
Okay, so we will have it be public.
So they will have whatever analysis they are able to do be published in those reports.
Great. Thank you. We had that point raised to us earlier in testimony, and that makes me feel good about it.
Kevin Coyne? You have a question, Luke? Oh, all right.
Okay, the last changes in this draft are on page 32. This is the appropriation section. So the first subsection A are new positions for the PUC, and there's a very small change on line 3. This is the request from the PUC. So it previously read 1 permanent exempt staff attorney 3. They requested that the 3 be struck so that it's any kind of staff attorney that could be hired. And I think last year actually they went back and forth about what level staff attorney they wanted to hire for this position, but so they just struck it entirely. Next small change is that on line 7, I accidentally wrote 2023 instead of 2024. So that has been changed. And then on line 8, there's a small change. Previously, and so it says, so the funds shall be used for all consultants required by this act. Previously, it just referenced it just said for the consultant required by this act. And so this is acknowledging that there are multiple consultants referenced in this report. And then on line 10, section 6, previously it read section 5, but there's a new section, so just bumping it up. So those are all of the changes in the draft that were preemptively requested. Now, I will say, this was the request from chair for these initial, and as Senator Watson pointed out yesterday, they do not reflect all of the PUC's requested changes.
Right, so, thank you, and I think, so that's one of the, I think that this process for rulemaking, or actually pre-filing of rules and the public level of public engagement, the language that's in the bill is much more explicit. I think their position was that they actually they were asking us to strike all of it, saying that their process now achieves basically what is laid out. So I've asked them to, if they believe it does provide that, asking them for language that makes explicit what their intentions are, so that we can evaluate how well they address our concerns around public access and equity.
Make it the law instead of just what they do.
Right, so I'd like them to spell it out. It's not that I'm doubting, but when they say, oh, we think we already do the things that you're looking for. But because there's a bit of a back and forth of what do you mean by that, I figure it's a positive thing for all parties to be explicit. You just put it, as they say, black and white between the 4 corners of the page, so we'll all see it. Okay, so thank you for that. I thought in terms of my metaphor, which will become tedious over time, is that I always feel like when we're editing a bill together, it's like painting yourself out of the room. So we start in the far corner and we keep going. So and one of the ways to do that is to do in, out, or not sure yet on the changes. So we have only 20-something minutes, but we can make some progress towards doing that. And I think once we get the ins, outs, or maybe sorted out for this draft, then I'd ask council for a clean next draft. And then we'll go back through, we've been receiving edits, suggested edits from people. And then committee members have proposals to make changes. So I thought we would tidy up this one. Council, you're giving me the look that suggests that
Council is confused.
Yeah.
So you are expecting tomorrow that I have a new draft?
I'm not, I would be asking you when we'd like to see the next draft. We can still mark things up on this one, but I would love to start ruling things in, out, maybe, so that we can take things off the table and help ourselves see what's left to use them. Senator White.
Thank you, Chairman Bright. I'm personally good with all of the current changes and don't have any additional.
That's an easy note to self for me to retain. So I don't mean to put anyone in an awkward spot. If people want to do the step through and we say yes, no, maybe, I don't want to gloss over anything that people want to come back to. So, Senator McCormick.
I have a little change in the statement of the bill, the statement of purpose. And it's not, it's just moving a little bit of language.
So can you just give us where you are page number wise?
Yeah, page 1.
Okay.
Okay. Line 5, the words efficiency and weatherization measures, I would like to move up to line 4 after the, so it says reducing greenhouse gas reduction for the thermal sector through and have the first thing we mentioned be efficiency and weatherization. And that relates back to the witness we heard from, I think it was yesterday, an older woman, I forget her name now, who referenced native indigenous customs and so on, and the old Vermont tradition of generally not being wasteful, that probably using less energy is the priority, and cleaner energy.
I'm guessing we all agree with that. My guess, though, on behalf of the council's advice would be that we cannot change the title of a bill once introduced. Is that true or not?
So you can't change it there. If you would like to change the title of the bill, it would be a new section at the end of the bill, which would only allow it to be changed after the bill has passed.
See, I was thinking this is a simple little.
It's not a typo. It was accurately transcribed as the title was requested by the sponsor. Yes.
I don't know if it's worth the trouble. I do think it's, although, you know, yeah, I would suggest we do that.
To add a section at the end, and then the title of the bill as introduced.
It's gonna go to the other body, for example. Send it to them. Not that anyone will ever notice. I mean, I don't want to make a big deal of that, but I do think that we want to make clear one way or another that the fundamental flaw in the entire approach is trying to find cleaner ways to keep doing the same thing, as opposed to doing something different.
Right, I'm gonna chalk this up to your carbon footprint. Council, could you make that change at the end of the bill? Right.
Yes. Can you read it to me again?
Okay,
So it's through,
starting at line 4, after the word through.
Yep.
Add efficiency and weatherization.
Okay.
I'm having trouble with my eyes, this one. Measures, efficiency and weatherization measures, and that those words be deleted from line 5.
Yep.
With the appropriate punctuation, stuff which you're so good at.
yes.
About substituting performance-based measures.
What's that?
How about substituting performance-based measures?
How do you want this to read now? We're, okay, you know, we do want to go forward.
When it comes up next time, people will have slept.
Just do what I say and ignore Mark.
All right, so I'm just gonna start turning through the bill and pausing at places where there are highlighted edits, and then ask people if you, since it seems as though the default is before I'm concerned, you say yes, and then we'll further get an objection. Stop us. So the first change is.
Sorry, process question. So I just want to recognize that I'm generally good with the sections as a whole, but I have a number of like small edits to suggest, and then maybe a couple of bigger-ish edits.
Sure.
And so would now be the time, I mean, in going
So-
through it generally,
Right,
we're not
so-
looking for the small edits.
Sorry, let me back up and try to restate what I would like us to use for
Yes.
process. For now, I don't know how many changes are there, 80 changes? Like to say, can we, yes or no to what's there? Then we can remove, then that means the next draft won't flag them anymore. They'll
Okay.
just be what we have. Then we would look at new things and we can
Okay.
start laying them in where they land, and they would be highlighted in the next draft. So we'll see
Okay.
only new language highlighted, and what we've accepted will be unhighlighted. Just makes it a lot easier to see what's still in play.
Okay. in that case, I think I can also say that there's nothing that I would object to in the general, big picture
Okay,
for the whole thing.
so that means Senator McCormick and McDonald, the things that we need to hear about would be things you would flag, and you could either steer me to them, or I'll just do the methodical thing. Okay, bottom of page 2, there's new language on 1781.
The new finding in the finding section. I love this addition.
In, I can keep going unless you tell me, wait a minute. In page 3, there's new language inserted with more specific cross references to VSA. Well, there's a new 2 VSA 205A, and then below at line 7, there's cross references to 2 specific subsections within Global Women's Solutions Act, A2 and A3, which are the targets related to 2030 and 2050 respectively.
A good bill hygiene. is what I
Good
have.
bill hygiene. Then we get to page 4, where there's a substantial chunk. Did I skip one?
No, can I speak to subdivision 4 on, or subdivision D on page 4?
It's good.
Subdivision D has new language related to the use of orders as in addition to rules. Is there any interest in me breaking up this paragraph into subdivisions?
Are you suggesting perhaps for readability's sake that we might consider doing that?
Just for readability's sake, it may be beneficial.
Anyone opposed to having council reorganize the paragraph on the committee's behalf? Okay,
Was this the section that Senator Watson had asked for readability to be moved up, or is that, okay, that's a later section, okay.
all right, so I look forward to seeing where the paragraph breaks are. All right. Page 5, the word delivered it just separated out things that are delivered versus things that are installed. That was the change, and then on lines 11 and 12, it restored language that was in the bill that passed by House and Senate last spring. Okay, I'll keep going. That, this was page 6, 17, the word amount was added. It's just amount versus number, there's a grammar edit, a grammar change. Bottom of that page, same thing happens with references to A2 and A3 as opposed to just A overall.
The credits are actually items. They're things you count, not things you measure.
Council, do you want to talk about
It should be a number.
So each measure, each clean heat measure that will be worked on, that will be done, will gain a different number of credits. And so the PUC is not going to set the number of, they're going to set the annual percentage of reduction that the obligated parties are required to produce, which may be a variable number of credits. If you'd like to go back to number, I think you could. It was previously the word number, I believe.
And the way it's phrased, it was,
so if we're counting items? Did this come from,
No, this came from you.
it came from me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then it's totally on me. I'm happy to go back and number. I don't. Would you like to see number? Anyone like to see number?
Well,
Things that were
I
enumerated.
defer to the.
All right. Fine by me. I don't remember the discussion that led to number going to amount, but we'll flag that as a change. Yes, please. And I own that one. So with that, let's keep going. Page 7, Annual percentage shall be the same for all obligated parties. This was a sentence that actually was a longer sentence broken into two. Same sort of the familiar adjustment A2 and A3 at the bottom of page 7. And it's going to keep going. Top of page 8, first registration deadline. So change in the calendar requested by the PUC. Line 13, types of fuel sold, catch by council because there's going to be more than one fuel type of heating fuel. Department of Tax, a cross-reference to Department of Taxes providing a list of entities. This is a part of that data need that they have in order to operate the program. Page 9, on or before January 31.
Chairman Brick.
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't disagree with any of these sections. I did have one follow-up from the fuel dealers that we heard from, which I think is relevant, and I think it could be in this section, it could also be in somewhere else, which is highlighting that these dates are kind of smack dab in the middle of heating season for registration. I don't know if we've discussed that, but if it would be a simple enough change to not have the registration deadlines be during the peak heating season. That was one concern that I felt was valid that we heard from the fuel dealers that, but I'm open, I'm not firm on that. I think that they would have enough advance notice. It wouldn't be debilitating to have it during the fuel season, but
They want to be making deliveries rather than doing.
yeah, I don't know if that's just one thing that I did hear that resonated with me, but I don't.
We want less dependence on fossil fuels,
Yeah,
make it so they can't do it.
okay.
So
That's a dirty trick.
So let's flag that first. I just want to flag out, we'll come back. So we'll leave the date for now. Maybe it will be earlier. This is actually 2024 is a year, 2 years prior to the program's enactment.
Okay, so
It's
that
just a
feels-
registration at that point. But we'll look into it further. Thank you. The next flag I see in here is good cause, and we spelled out examples of good cause on page 11, lines 7 through 9. Okay. Default delivery agent, I know there's going to be more to discuss, and the PUC actually has more language. I think they have looked at the efficiency Vermont language they have, or the language that the Vermont Council is led under, and I think we've submitted more language. So for now, again, Mark, this one is come back to. Because I know there's going to be language in play. Thank you. Top of page 13 and 4 parts. Just make it more explicit and understanding that it's there. Top of 14, more certainty is introduced by the word shall on line 1. Let me check with council on lines 12 through 19, since we have been sorting things out a little bit between PUC and AG's office. There's new proposed language for that section, is that right?
I spoke to the Attorney General's office yesterday in response to your question. And Senator McCormack, you'll be very pleased to hear that they agreed with your assessment in that they were concerned that spelling out what a per se violation was for one type of statute would be potentially detrimental to other statutes that do not say the word per se violation. So they have concern with paragraph 5. I believe that, so we talked through potentially just striking that phrase. I think the PUC also spoke to them, and is potentially going to propose cutting down that paragraph.
Okay, so I'm marking this one as come back. Because you know there's discussion today.
Yes.
Thank you. So page 15, we got a committee name change. January 15 of each year following is the reporting obligation. The standing committees. What was the date prior to January 15?
August 31st.
Oh, that's right. Because they would explain their process that lets them write the report. And actually, it's a multi-step process, so they said, could you let us finish, use them? Can you give us enough time? All right, so I'm now on page 17, with the eligible measures section. There's the insertion of the word utility. I'm going to say come back on that one because it was a best guess. And we also eliminated a section, that's why 7's highlighted because we pulled up the section there. I jump ahead to page 19, the next edit is the A2, A3 thing, which we've liked before, I figure we like it still. Page 20, beginning of January 1, 2023, that's when it used to be 2022. So that's the section where we just changed the date, and it's in order to try to avoid the unintended consequences of someone putting off doing work now because they see heat measures being avoided in the future. So, funded in full or in part by what a PUC edit about being more explicit. There's a question of, I'm going to come back on this one because there's also a question of we needed to refer to federal as well as state.
Well, do you just want me to make that change?
If you can, if you know what it is, that I don't know if we solved that.
Sure.
I think elsewhere refer to funded in whole or part by federal or state policies and programs. So that was to accommodate the IRA. Everyone fine with lifting feds as well as the state. Okay, council, please make the change. Thank you very much. Keep going. Next change is page 24 of 34. We might make it. Commission may use appropriated funds to hire the consultant. We just went over that. Guessing that everyone's fine with using those funds. Page 26, the severability of renumbering, because we took out the consumer protection piece in order to avoid any kind of unintended consequence between conversion language. Then we have the new section on confidentiality of tax records. I want to run it by tax to hear what they have to say, but for now, based on our testimony, what we were aiming for. Sure we want government shares necessary data with other parts of government. Any questions or concerns on that one? Okay, then I'm going to go on to page 28. We have the edits on lines 9 and 12. The most substantive for which I might say was the may hire a third-party consultant who weren't sure if they needed to or not. Certain permissive. Page 30 of 34, lines 5 and on, there are so the first group, so 5 through 8, just relate to the fact that they use EPC, and so they want to make sure that we cross-reference their current practice accurately. Line 10, I'll editorialize on their behalf. It said make necessary changes, which seems somewhat arbitrary. What's a necessary change? So they said consider changes, which is their normal way of, if they take changes, they have to respond, and they want to make, but they will consider them all, even the ones that they don't make. Same thing in the line 17, that they may contract. Page 31 now, there's a committee name change. Line 16 through 19, there is the PUC's request to be able to have sister departments and agencies assist them in doing this economic analysis. Page 32, update. I don't know what to call it.
No technical corrections. to it.
Technical corrections, thank you. Then we go to, and that's it.
And it is exactly
Page-
12 o'clock.
Page 31,
Yes, sir.
line 16.
There's one, 16. Yep.
um,
This is too permissive.
It's dealing with reliance and self-reliance and
Yeah.
et cetera. Is it, there's somewhere saying that that the agency of Congress would be obliged to do what's in here, or can we depend on what they do? We have faith in them.
Yeah, good question. Don't we usually specify that other departments must actually help when requested?
Yes, I think the phrase may rely is odd,
Is what, thank you for
Right, so can we change?
voicing my concern.
Thank you for sending it down. Can we change that to, they're obligated, whatever, how you would usually say it, but we create an obligation for them to assist.
Shall, agencies or whatever, shall, what?
Okay,
yeah, shall assist.
okay, so we'll flag that as a comeback. Thank you, Senator McDonald. And that brings us to 12:02. Thank you to everyone for your patience, staying a little over. Council, so you're busy from here through tomorrow. I don't know if you're gonna be able to make any of these changes, or we should work and bring new edits. Keep this draft and now start considering, for instance, Senator Watson's edits. What's your preference?
No, what's the commit, is the committee asking for a new draft? Because I could work on a new draft.
I would love a new draft. That way
Okay,
we would have a clean slate to edit. If you can do that. Very good. Okay,
So what
so,
is the chair's preference regarding Mr. Rouse's suggestions, which I forwarded to
yeah, so let's go over those tomorrow. If you want to propose changes, we'll, as part of tomorrow's walkthrough, we'll
you?
get
Got that, right?
additional suggestions.